Hey guys, how are we doing? Crypto Insight UK here, bringing you back another YouTube video. So as you guys know, my laptop has been playing up a little bit recently, so I'm going to do the best I can with what I've got. I've got a new mic here, so hopefully this works better than what's been going on. I'll get a new laptop when I get back to Dubai, which is going to be in about 9 to 10 days. Getting into this video, I want to show quite a lot of news. There's been some amazingly massive XRP news, so we'll get into that in a minute. I'm going to talk about price action. I'm going to talk about what I think is going on in the markets generally. But let's start with a bit of PA. So just looking at Bitcoin, what we can see if we use Coinbase, the wick has been filled for Bitcoin. We then swept the lows. We then hovered it around below the lows, pushed out, haven't managed to break structure back to the upside yet. And the last day, or the last few hours, 6, 7, 8 hours, we've actually come to sweep the lows. Whether we get a sweep below 106, I don't know, or whether we continue down to sweep the bottom, and we'll get into liquidity towards the end of the video, is a discussion for another time. I want to get more of a discussion going on towards like market structure overall rather than low time frame PA. So I'm going to start with this. Cred is discussing how the last wave of this of the larger fifth or the larger impulsive move to the upside is starting its last wave being the fifth wave, projecting that we go out towards 100k, 200k, sorry, and I'm on the same channel as that. I think that the next move takes us to 150 plus. I've said this for a while. I've shown that in liquidity pools. I've written about it in the newsletter, and I think that coincides with XRP going to 8 to 10, 8 to 12 dollars, and I'll be deleveraging heavily there before we get the final blow off wave, which Cred thinks is coming, and I would be more leaning towards the fact that it is, but I just don't want to leave that sort of money on the table just in case it's not. So that's the first thing. Secondly, and getting into the most exciting part of this video, in my opinion, is looking at Evernorth, which is the most recent Ripple announcement. Essentially, they're going to be creating an XRP Treasury company, which goes live on Monday. They're looking to raise $1 billion worth of XRP for their Treasury. And this is a little bit about it. Evernorth is designed to provide investors with regulated, transparent, and liquid exposure to XRP whilst actively growing XRP per share through institutional DeFi strategies, first of its kind for an XRP Treasury model. It's also got Ashish Bala as the CEO, who's former Ripple exec, and it has David Schwartz on the board, and potentially something to do with the technology over there. The transaction is expected to raise $1 billion in proceeds, includes $200 million from SBI, and Chris Larsen put $150 million in. Brad Garlinghouse is also, I've got this from Anders L. Hang on, wait. This gives you a bit more of an insight into the company generally. Anders made a bit of a like spider diagram about it. Brad Garlinghouse, Stuart Alderati, David Schwartz as strategic advisors, Ashish Bala as a CEO. And the strategy is to accumulate XRP, institutional lending, liquidity providing, DeFi opportunities, and long-term catalysts for adoption and institutionalization of the ledger. Investors, GSR Markets, Chris Larsen, RippleWorks, Ripple, SBI, Pantera, and Kraken. I also saw advisors. I talked about this, but it's not on here. One of them is Citigroup. So there's this could be massive, and as I said, it goes live on Monday, which is today is Tuesday or when? No, today's Tuesday. So we've got about 6 days for that to go live. That could be really exciting, in my opinion. So touching on a few other things, I think, and I'm more on the line of like with Raoul Pal and Julian Bittel, where they're talking about that this cycle is not necessarily 4 years, but extended to 5, because I think more structurally, and then they've backed it up with fundamentals, being that the debt from like the C19 crash has rolled for an extra year, take an extra year before it needs to be rolled. And in that case, I wrote about the Russell 2000. I'd show you where we are related to 2020, because that'd be 5 years. We would be here, and then after like just 2 weeks is when we start to really see the explosion to the upside. I've written in depth about this in this tweet here, so I'm just showing you this now, where the Russell made 3 attempts towards its highs, didn't manage to quite break, but then when it did get that break, we started to close above, we pushed up to the 1.618 Fibonacci extension pretty quickly. And then I was showing at the time where we were compared to like where we are now. So it's showing the 20th of October was the the week before it happened. So that's roughly next week / the week after. This is where we are now, and the 1.618 would be at 2,950 for the Russell. So that's where I'm expecting or looking at this move to be take us to, and this is the Russell expansion has also coincided essentially with alt season. It indicates breadth in the market. Another thing I wanted to touch on is that Flair's had a 39% TVL growth since September the 24th, so in the last month, 37.9%, and yet to see an increase in price. And I discussed that I do think that there is a correlation between TVL and price, but not yet. We haven't found a model that creates an effective understanding of price to TVL or a direct correlation, but I do think there is a correlation there. So I've been heavily adding to my Flair bags as obviously XRP has gone live. So is there anything else I wanted to touch on quickly on Twitter before I show you liquidity pools to finish off this video? Oh yeah, this is one thing that I do think is quite important. As I'm not trying to fearmonger, but what are the odds of Binance being in a bit of trouble? Binance were the exchange where token severely dipped to the downside, and they seem to be the largest sellers at the minute by quite a long shot in terms of like exchanges selling right now. So that led me to this tweet this morning, and I put this in my group chat with my friends. I said, look, this isn't backed by any fact. I just put this in a group chat with my friends. I don't presume they're dead, but just FYI, I think Binance were targeted by the Trump family and US government. Well, I say this because World Liberty Finance sold before the dip, and the dip coincided with Trump talks, and Binance was the only one that lost USD EPEG and BETH PEG or WBETH PEG, which makes me think it was a coordinated attack towards Binance. I'm speculating that it was from the US, because of the timing of the Trump tweet and also because of World Liberty Finance. Could the US want Binance market share to be rocked before they send the market to the upside? There's a completely wild thing to talk about, but I'm just discussing that potential possibility. And I said, look, get your funds off Binance just in case. So this is obviously the markets generally. What I'm looking at, I'm going to take us to the daily. I haven't been massively into the charts the last few weeks because I'm on vacation, as you guys know. Bitcoin is still holding its lows. I talked about how previously, this is on the daily time frame, when Bitcoin has had like flush outs, we have seen like wick bottoms that don't get completely filled, So potentially we could see that again. There's another one and another one and another one. So what I'm saying is we don't have to fill this wick, even though a lot of people are talking about that. Doesn't mean we don't. I'm just saying we don't have to. Just discussing that possibility. Also, XRP's have a pretty strong bounce, but nothing structurally changed. It needs to start closing above the 264 before we can start getting excited for XRP. ETH's one of those that I have actually mentioned a few times because of ETH's liquidity, and we'll get onto that in like 1 second. The last thing we're looking at here is Bitcoin dominance. It's kind of chopping upwards, in my opinion, ready to continue to the downside. It has grounded like this and then started to push up higher before, but when you do see this like choppy upwards price action, and look, it has done this for a lot of years, when you lose the levels below like the liquidity, it does start to plummet down. So if we start to lose like 58% for Bitcoin dominance, we should start to really push to the downside. And if we go to the monthly time frame, this is something that I've been really trying to explain to you guys for a long time. I'll put my drawings back on just for a second. So far, Bitcoin dominance has only lost like 11%, and every single other 4-year cycle that everyone's drawing so heavily on at the minute, Bitcoin dominance has lost a minimum of 46%. So this gives me confidence that the cycle is yet to be over. And one last thing that I did talk about for Bitcoin in the weekly newsletter is that so far this cycle, we've had 6 17 to 30% pullbacks for Bitcoin. This is the 7th that we're in now, and for some reason people are freaking out about this because it coincides with the timings of the 4-year cycle. I'm actually going to leave this video there because my laptop sounds like it's about to take off again, and I don't want that to affect the recording quality. But I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I'm sorry I haven't been recording as much. As I said, it's been technology issues for myself. But I will be back very soon. Let me know what you guys think about the XRP news. I'm extremely bullish about that. It's going live on Monday. I think that's going to increase the demand for XRP, and I think that it's going to give us a real show of how much demand institutionally and also, institutionally mainly, but from players outside of the crypto space who haven't been able to get access to XRP, how much demand there is for XRP as an asset. And if it's quite significant, I don't think there's going to be any discussion, as there's going to be no way that people can foot it, because it's going to be literally there and you're going to see demand. So excited for Monday. The project looks insane. When I get more information, I will release that. But definitely excited about that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please do hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and share it with a friend. If you want to use any exchanges for leverage trading, remember, be careful out there, especially with what's going on at the minute. I have a link to MEXC and WeX in the description below. They're what I use, but I don't put much of my capital into these exchanges at a time. A tiny fraction of what I have overall. But yeah, if you did enjoy, please do share it with a friend. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. Peace up, A-Town down, as Crypto Insight UK would say.